Word. Word. Troublesome 96. Yo, I said stop myself, I'm not myself. Headed into anything, knowing that I got myself. And all my enemies wishing that I shot myself. Dead on the bed, clothes covered in red. Stop myself, I'm not myself. Headed into anything, knowing that I got myself. And all my enemies wishing that I shot myself. Dead.
What is up, y'all? It is Mike here with Combat Sports Today. We got a lot going on this weekend, and I want to talk about UFC 318. It is Dustin Poirier's retirement fight. Max Holloway, the third fight in the trilogy. He's already up 2-0. You know, I might have had a different match. If it was me making all the matchups, I probably would have done something different, but it should be a banger nonetheless. We got two warriors going at it. Louisiana, hometown card for the boy Dustin Poirier. And I'm excited to talk about it. The card's pretty stacked. We got 14 fights. You know, I've seen some complaints about the quality of the card, but I think it's going to be an absolute banger. I'm super excited to talk about it, break it down. But before we get into that, I do, because we didn't do a recap, so I got to give myself some flowers. I want to do a very, very short recap over UFC Nashville last weekend. This was an incredible card. Incredible from a betting standpoint, incredible from an entertainment standpoint. We had a lot going on. I just wanted to go through the picks because these last three cards straight, my picks have been on fire. I don't want to, I don't want to be too cocky, but usually it doesn't go down the way it's been going down. Anybody who picks fights regularly, there's off weeks, crazy things happen. But we've been on fire over here. So, we start off with Melissa Martinez, Fatima Klein, take Fatima Klein inside the distance. I lost hope in it. I was like, you know what? It's okay. She's going to win a decision. She still looks great. And then boom, round 3 knockout, head kick to ground and pound. It was unbelievable. One of my favorite prospects in the division. And so we cashed that. And then we double back. All right, let me do the same thing. Mike Davis, Mitch Ramirez is tough, but he doesn't have the skill set. So let me get Mike Davis inside the distance. Boom, cash it again with actually a very entertaining brawl and exchange in the second round between Mike Davis and Mitch Ramirez. Mitch Ramirez's game, but at the end of the day, he got overwhelmed. Mike Davis was cleaner, and he got it done. And next we got Walter Walker. I'm not gonna lie, this play that I had, some people were hating on it, but 2 subs straight. He looked fat and slow against Brzeski, and then we see him in his next 2 bouts, especially directly after the Brzeski fight. He came out and he was looking cut. Okay, all right, gets a sub. Next fight gets a sub. All right, so he has 2 straight submission wins going up against Kennedy and Zechiku, who's a striker. What happens? He gets a sub. Plus 750. It was at 1.8 to 1 odds for him to get a submission, so we cashed 2 inside the distance and then a submission prop. I only got 2 picks wrong on this card. I did get every winner correct except one, but the one play that I had wrong was Eduardo Mora inside the distance. Lauren Murphy looked really good. She was really tough, but Eduardo Mora, she got the job done. So we didn't catch that one. I took Eduardo Mora by submission. She ended up winning by decision. And then we got Jake Matthews, Chidi, and Jaquani. I'm just going over this quick just because the picks were crazy, the odds were crazy. Jake Matthews by sub plus 700. He ended up locking that up in under a minute. So there was almost no sweat there, no danger that he had to deal with from Chidi and Jaquani. I was super happy about that. I'm a big fan of Jake Matthews. And then after that, we got Chris Curtis. He won a decision. It is what it is. That money line was in the CST parlay of the week, but he didn't look as good as he usually does in terms of the boxing. Max Griffin actually surprised me a little bit. Next fight, we're on the main card. Tuco Tokos. Me and Phil called it on our early preview. Shout out, Phil. Tuco Tokos ended up winning the fight by sub, which we took, plus 850. I was actually pretty happy about that one. Junior Taffa is tough, and he looked in really good shape. People saw the weigh-ins and started throwing down on him. I said, nah, he got in shape, but I doubt he worked on his takedown defense enough. So Tuco Tokos gets it done by submission. I'm happy to see him get a win. He's a tough motherfucker. He ate some big shots in that fight. So I was really, at this point, I'm amped up. We caught plus 750 on Walter Walker sub, plus 700 on Jake Matthews sub, and now plus 850 on Tuco Tokos sub. And should have parlayed him, should have got rich, but we didn't. And then after that, we got a heavyweight bout between Vitor Petrino and Austin Lane. Called the sub on that, and Vitor Petrino in first round. Vitor Petrino by sub was plus 850, so that's another cash. My boy was the one who I got to his crib to watch the fights, and he said Vitor Petrino by sub, lock it in, and it happened. So that's another one. Next, we took Morgan Charrier by knockout. I really wanted Nate Landwehr to win, but when he does lose, he does typically get knocked out. And Morgan Charrier has never been finished by knockout, which was, in my opinion, Nate's most realistic way of getting it done. And in round 2, it looked like he was going to do it. But he did not get it done. Morgan Charrier went out swinging for the fences, and Morgan Charrier got it done. It was nerve-wracking. I wanted him to lose, but I thought, hey, we put down a Morgan Charrier by knockout. Nate Landwehr wins. I'm happy that Nate won. But if he loses and I'm upset, at least we cashed on the Morgan Charrier knockout. So it worked out. So at this point, we're like 8 for 9 on bets. Where's Phil? Phil's not here today. He has a very busy schedule. I just wanted to get something out here. We had such a good week last week. So I just wanted to do a brief recap over the picks for last week because they were incredible. I'm hoping to do something similar this weekend. Phil's here. Phil is here. I'm over here. Phil's real busy. He can't make it, but he is busy as fuck though. Junior Tafa is not UFC material. If Junior Tafa he's probably gonna get cut, but he is has been they love the Tafa brothers over at the UFC. So if he gets another chance, he might want to take some significant time off and really work on the defensive wrestling because, and I'm not saying Tuco Tokos is bad. Tuco Tokos got fed to the wolves in his first 2 fights with the UFC. But Junior Tafa is, he has an issue with what to do when somebody tries to wrestle him. If that initial sprawl doesn't work and he gets to the ground, he has no get-up game. And it's unfortunate because he does have some pretty electric striking at times. Phil here. Shout out Mike, back to work grind. Yeah, you already know Phil is grinding. Phil is grinding 24/7, even if he's not working. Phil's a go hard. So that's why I'm up here just doing a little quick breakdown. And now we're in the feature bout of the night with Steve Garcia, Calvin Kattar. I actually thought Calvin Kattar was going to win this one. I love Steve Garcia, but I've always assumed at some point his super pressure, suffocating style is going to get him caught. And I thought it was going to be here against Calvin Kattar. I thought the boxing would be too clean. And Steve Garcia is a monster. He is an absolute monster. He would not stop. And the referee or the commentators eventually said, just as me and my buddy were talking about, he's up 2-0. He could probably let off the gas a little. Calvin's going to have to chase. And no, Steve Garcia was still pushing that finish the entire 3rd round. He didn't find it. Calvin Kattar's a tough guy, but he completely dominated that fight with his pressure. He must have something serious in those hands because Calvin Kattar did not want to get close to him. Steve Garcia looked big. He looked long, but he really did. I'm not going to lie. He was incredible. I was shocked. And I love Steve Garcia. I just didn't think it was going to happen this time. I was hoping for Kattar to win too, man. Me and Delinquent had him in the CST parlay. He hit me up. I was like, yeah, I'm actually pretty confident in Kattar. I think he's going to be too clean for that style. And he was not. Steve Garcia hits like a truck. So, it is what it is. He has incredible cardio. He's a beast, and he's a now ranked contender. And then Gabriel Bonfim. I didn't even realize that I had placed a pretty hefty parlay on this one. So me and the boys put him in a big play. I forgot about that one, and I was like, man, he got robbed. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson got robbed. He did way more in rounds 2 and rounds 3. Bonfim had no answer for the striking, and he resorted to stalling against the fence like we've seen plenty of fighters do. And, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is 42 years old. Gabriel Bonfim, 29. So, the crooked judges, the MMA scene, UFC especially, is becoming just like boxing. Okay, we're going to be able to market Gabriel Bonfim. He's 29 years old. It's a close-ish fight. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is on his way out. He's 42 years old. He doesn't have much time left. So we're going to go ahead and give a split decision victory to Gabriel Bonfim, even though me, all the journalists I saw on social media, all the UFC fighters I saw on social media, and a lot of the fans as well agree with me that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson got absolutely robbed here. So the parlay piece hit and Gabriel Bonfim, but I was pretty upset because I felt that Stephen Thompson deserved that win. And then in the main event, we got Derek Lewis. At this point, the profits have been building. Cena, Taliesin Teixeira's striking defense on Dana White's Contender Series, it was abysmal. And you can't have striking defense that looks like that when you're fighting Derek Lewis. You're going to have to be clean and calculated on the feet, or you're going to have to wrestle, or you're getting knocked out. And that's what we saw here. It was a pretty sweat-free plus 300 knockout for Derek Lewis. Throw a little heavy on that after all the straights have been hitting. And, straights are the way to go. Parlays are cool. If I had parlayed all those sub props this weekend, I would retire, but better safe than sorry. And this card was very, very fun. It was a great watch. So now that I've gotten through that, I just wanted to throw some flowers on the boys. We made some awesome picks this last weekend, and we're looking to do it again this week. So I'm going to pull up the fights for this card. We got some bangers. And here we are. First fight of the night on UFC 318. We got Carly Judice in a women's flyweight bout against Nicole Cagliari. I'm very excited for Carly Judice. She's actually a prospect that I love. Wonderboy robbed. I agree with you, Saba. I was pretty upset. About it. It is what it is. It's clearly, a little bit of a fix there in terms of wanting to continue this young Brazilian prospect on the right track, So he already kind of got checked by Dalby. He gets back in the win column against Chaos Williams with that beautiful submission. And then, Wonderboy's a stiff test. I don't care if he's 42. He is elite. Stephen Thompson is still elite. His takedown defense looked incredible. His get-up game incredible. Obviously, we know what his striking is like. That was a shame. I think Wonderboy kind of got a win over, a scary prospect, and they did not let him have it, unfortunately. But we got a slight banger here, two solid prospects. Carly Judice is very young. Nicole Cagliari as well. I think Judice is 26 and Cagliari is 28, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. So they're both pretty young here. Yeah. Carly Judice has a pretty massive height and reach advantage as well. So, just from what I've seen from both of these fighters' standpoint, I think Carly Judice is very good. She's 4-2. Her record isn't anything to write home about, but I think she's very impressive. Ernesta Carrot-Skate had beaten both of these women, but Carly Judice was in that fight. She had the fight against Gabby Fernandez where she was a little bit outgunned, and then of course against Eunice Dubin in her last matchup. She had that sick knockout, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure. I like Carly Judice. I think she's moving up in the division this weekend. So she's probably what is she? Carly Judice is a minus 325 favorite. Nicole Cagliari at plus 260. I would say that Carly Judice is a pretty solid parlay piece for this one. I don't have much to say other than that. Out of these two prospects, I'm going with the pretty dynamic striker. She's relative for 4-2 for a 6-fight career so far. I feel like she's relatively well-rounded. She's a bit taller. She has a longer reach. She can probably keep the fight on the feet in her striking range with kicks and punches. Stay on the outside and batter the shorter, smaller fighter. So that one's pretty cut and dry for me. Carly Judice. The sportsbooks agree. And this one is an interesting matchup. I'm not exactly sure why Jackson McVeigh is drawing Bruno Ferreira in his debut. He was supposed to fight Cedriquez Dumas 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago or last week. I don't even fucking remember. He was supposed to fight Cedriquez Dumas. He ended up having to fight some other guy who was coming in. I can't remember his name, Chris Newton or something like that. Either way, the fight didn't happen. And now Jackson McVeigh is fighting a couple weeks later against Bruno Ferreira, who at this point has a decent amount of UFC experience, some pretty insane knockout power, and he's also very good on the ground as well. One thing I do like about McVeigh, he's taller, he has a longer reach, but I don't know, man. I feel like this is a little bit dirty. a little dirty matchmaking. It almost seems like they're putting him in this spot to get knocked out, unless McVeigh is fighting out of Louisiana, and then that makes sense. I don't know much about Jackson McVeigh, but I gotta say I'm leaning that Bruno Ferreira is gonna probably get it done by knockout. My hopes is that Jackson McVeigh can at least look tough, put up a good fight, make a good showing of himself, and maybe even surprise us with a 29-28 unanimous decision victory. But I just think the experience is going to play a factor here for Bruno Ferreira. He's fought some decent competition so far, and this is a tough debut for the young fighter, Jackson McVeigh. So I got Bruno Ferreira. The odds on this fight, Bruno Ferreira is a -675. The under 1.5 is -260. So they think that essentially what the sports books are saying here is they think Bruno Ferreira is going to finish the fight most likely in the first round. I'd be inclined to agree. That's just a little bit messed up, honestly. The what we got going on here with my boy Jackson McVeigh. Fuck it, whatever. I hope he pulls it off, but I doubt it. And next we got an interesting matchup. This one to me is a get back for Ryan Spann, because Ryan Spann, although I feel like the fans don't necessarily have the highest opinion on him, he is very inconsistent. Ryan Spann does kind of, I don't know what's going on in his head, but we've heard him speak briefly on things. He has mental lapses, whether it's, I don't know if it's in preparation or if it's just, things that are going on outside of the cage, in his personal life. But we've seen Ryan Spann pull the trigger and look very effective. And then we've seen him almost like he's second guessing himself, or he's gassing out, or he gives up. It's hard to say. Ryan Spann is a very interesting fighter. Lukasz Brzeski, on the other hand, Brzeski, he's 9-6. He had a debut against Martin Boudet, which I actually thought he won that fight, and he could have been starting off on good footing. But, he's kind of not really panned out, Lukasz Brzeski, he recently got finished by Kennedy and Zechiku. He does have that win over Walter Walker, which, I actually think Walter Walker could make some waves in the heavyweight division. So that was a good win. But here I'm thinking Ryan Spann's probably going to end up winning by knockout. I don't think Lukasz Brzeski is going to want to take this fight to the ground, because Ryan Spann is a tactician. Well, maybe not tactician, but he definitely throws up a lot of submission attempts. So if you are on the ground with Ryan Spann, you got to be on your P's and Q's, or you're probably going to get locked up with a sub. I don't see Brzeski knocking out Ryan Spann at all. Outside of Ryan Spann gassing like really badly, I don't see him losing this fight. I haven't looked at the odds, but I guess they're probably pretty steep. Ryan Spann -230, Lukasz Brzeski +190, under 1.5 is -160. That's very interesting to me. It's a relative, for what I was expecting, it's relatively close money on Ryan Spann, -230. Do you want to throw down on Ryan inconsistent Spann? In this matchup, probably. I would say Ryan Spann, I can't see how he gets finished. I don't see this fight going 3 rounds. Under 1.5 is -60. I think we're looking at, Ryan Spann first round win. Whether it's a submission or a knockout, that's hard to say. There's always a club and sub liability, or if Lukasz Brzeski's getting assaulted on the feet, he might shoot a takedown and Ryan Spann could snatch the neck. So I guess what I would be looking for is a major discrepancy in odds. If I see Ryan Spann knockout +110, and then Ryan Spann by submission is like +450 or something like that, I think it's worth going for the juice. But safest money would be money line Ryan Spann -230 as a parlay piece. I actually do think that's pretty solid. Pretty cut and dry fight. I think they're giving Ryan Spann his get back. Definitely a get back spot for him. And then here we have an interesting bout between Jimmy Crute and Marcin Prachnio. Marcin Prachnio, he's a rangy, awkward, karate style fighter. He's actually pretty decent, 17-8. He's not the most elite fighter you're going to run into, but he can be tricky sometimes. I remember when we saw Vitor Petrino fighting Marcin Prachnio, Everyone thought Vitor Petrino was going to roll through him, and he actually ran into some, that awkward style was causing issues, at range for him and for other fighters in the past as well. Jimmy Crute's pretty good. Jimmy the Brute, he's a dog. He hasn't won a fight, and I believe he has not won a fight in like the last 4 years. But he is good. He's had multiple draws. For all I know, his last fight is going to go to a draw. But no, realistically, let me see the odds on this fight. We got Jimmy Crute is a -310, which is crazy. Marcin Prachnio plus 250. Under 2.5 is -140. So this fight, what I would think is going to happen, Jimmy Crute's going to go out throwing heavy to close the distance. Marcin Prachnio is, like I said, an awkward style. So Jimmy Crute probably throw winging shots or scoot in with the jab, overhand, and then once he's inside of his range, shoot for the takedown, get Marcin Prachnio out of the ground. Jimmy Crute's good with his ground and pound, and he also is a submission threat. So I would probably have to go with Jimmy Crute inside the distance. And if I was going to take a stab at it, I'm going to say Jimmy Crute by submission, because Marcin Prachnio did get subbed into the last fight by Modestas Bukauskas, if I'm not mistaken. He actually had a vicious question mark kick up against the cage that cracked Modestas, and that was super, super impressive. But Jimmy Crute is relatively durable in his own respect as well. So I could see him eating a couple shots, getting the fight to the ground, and ultimately winning by sub. Yeah, I like that. Jimmy Crute by sub. The lines aren't out yet, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we don't have anything for finishing props yet, but Jimmy Crute by sub seems like the most realistic outcome for me. He hasn't won a fight in a while. He's actually not bad. I think he's due for a win here. CST, shout out Chris Cushman. I appreciate you guys. If you're in the chat on YouTube, if you come across the video, throw down a like, throw down a sub, tell your friends. As you can see on the bottom of the page, follow Combat Sports Today on all platforms at CS Today News. We got everything you're looking for if you're looking for everything combat sports. It's an absolute pleasure to be involved. Phil is the GOAT. He's always putting in work, and go follow and find out for yourself. There is all types of stuff: Muay Thai, kickboxing, UFC, regional promotions, PFL. We got PFL Africa coming up this weekend. Boxing breakdowns, news for every sport under the sun, matchups, funny content. We got it all here. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course YouTube as well. So shout out Chris Cushman, CST. Let's go. Like and subscribe, everybody, if you haven't yet. That's very much appreciated for the algorithm as well. Jimmy Crute by sub is the pick. I might go live again on Thursday. I would like to talk about the props once they're out, but just giving initial thoughts and breakdown here as well. And this next fight, poor Adam Fugitt. This guy is tough as nails. He has a pretty solid Muay Thai game, relatively decent takedown defense as well. I'm not exactly sure how Islam Dulatov is going to get this one done. I just do believe it's inside the distance. He has 11 wins, 6 by knockout, 5 by submission, or the other way around. Either way, he gets it done in multiple different ways, and he is a true finisher. I'm not seeing odds. Yes, I am seeing odds. We got Islam Dulatov at -600 with Adam Fugitt at +440. The under 1.5 sits at -188. So we got a decent amount of under 1.5 so far for this fight card. So we got some, as you can see, based on the odds and based on the round props, some pretty one-sided matchups to start the early prelims. Islam Dulatov, he's a younger fighter. He's a Russian savage, and he's probably going to get this one done. If I had to guess, Adam Fugitt's tough. I don't necessarily see him getting just one shot knocked out, but club and sub is live here. So again, just like with the Ryan Spann situation, something that I like to do, and it's obviously safer to go inside distance. There just probably won't be that much juice there. But like if you see Islam Dulatov by knockout, -140, and then him by sub at +400 or +300 or something way different, he wins all of his fights. It's half and half, submission knockout. So I would go for the juicier option there if you're looking to make some money. Or you could just take the safer route and go inside distance, or in my personal opinion as well, under 1.5 rounds. I do think that he's live to finish this fight, honestly, in the first round. This guy's a pretty solid prospect, and I'm excited to see him. I like Adam Fugitt because he's tough, but I don't see him winning this fight. Taking a significant amount of damage, and he's getting older. That one's pretty cut and dry. Islam Dulatov, inside the distance, probably in the first round. And then here we got another man that some of these guys that I like are just kind of getting fed to the wolves here. I feel like all of these fight, pretty much every fight we've talked about so far, except for Crute, Spann, and Judice, who are relatively steep in their own respect at 3-1 and 2-1 odds, have been pretty substantial favorites here. We got Ateba Gautier and Robert Valentin, middleweight bout. Ateba Gautier is a savage. Robert Valentin, he's tricky, and he's a little slick in his own respect. We saw him Torres Finney in his last fight. Kind of just got held down the entire fight. I know he was disappointed with the performance, and now they're giving him this absolute freak athlete. He has a lot of power in his hands. We haven't seen that much from him yet, but I think Ateba Gautier is a very promising prospect in the middleweight division. And the sports books agree. They got minus 550 for Gautier, plus 410 for Robert Valentin, another under 1.5 at minus 145. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 out of the first 6 fights all are lined at 1.5 rounds, which is pretty crazy, honestly. So I guess they want to make this card super entertaining. Dustin Poirier's last fight, it's a last ride for a legend, company man with the UFC. We're gonna, based on the matchups and the odds that we're seeing here, it's an insinuation that we're gonna get a lot of finishes on this card. So I am pretty excited about it. I usually, when talking about the fights from a betting standpoint, we usually like to see a little bit closer money, obviously, because you could parlay all these favorites so far, minus 500, minus 600, minus 450, and you're going to be sitting at like a minus 120 on a 4-leg parlay. So there's not that much juice here. I mean, if I had to guess, I'm saying Ateba Gautier is probably going to get Robert Valentin to the ground. He, lacks. He doesn't necessarily lack, but we saw him against Ryan Loder. We saw him against Torres Finney. Fighters are able to get Robert Valentin to the ground and keep him there. And with an athlete like Gautier, I would, I'm sure he's going to be winging heavy shots. There is a chance here that the lesser experienced fighter, could potentially become gassed. And then now Robert Valentin could sneak himself back into the fight. I do think that it is more likely that we see Ateba Gautier finish this fight within the first 2 rounds. I mean, these fights pretty much are all cut and dry so far. It's a lot of heavy favorites, mismatches. But yeah, minus 550. There's not much you can do with that. I don't have props out, but I would have to go with TKO, ground and pound for Gautier in this fight. And here we actually have my boy. In hindsight, my worst pick of all time is probably Francisco Prado over Jake Matthews. I saw him on the scale, and I was like, wow, Francisco Prado looks ripped. Let's go, dude. And then I saw him in the cage against Jake Matthews. He looked like a featherweight. But I like Francisco Prado. I picked him against Matthews for a reason. Obviously, that was a terrible pick, but Francisco Prado is a well-rounded fighter. He's he's 12-3. He has 15 pro fights. He kind of got some rough matchups to start his UFC career. And of course, when he moves up to welterweight, they give him a guy who's been sitting in that weight class in the UFC for the last 11 years. This man is better than advertised, I'd have to say. I believe he's 2-3 in his last 5 fights. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think he has more to show us as a UFC level talent. I do like Francisco Prado a lot. I think he is a little bit small for the welterweight division. He only has a 69-inch reach, 5'10". 5'10" is not that short, but he looked pretty small against Jake Matthews. I'm not going to lie. It's a little bit of a cause for concern, but Veretennikov himself only has a 2-inch height advantage, 5 inches on reach, and he's a little bit older. I think Francisco Prado is going to be too sharp for him. He has decent boxing, decent takedown defense as well. I think if necessary, he can cause scrambles and get back to his feet, potentially find a submission of his own. But I would lean towards Francisco Prado by knockout in this fight. And I believe this fight is actually lined relatively close. Francisco Prado is a minus 142. Nikolay Veretennikov plus 120. Over 2.5 rounds is sitting at minus 166. So the odds makers believe that this fight is most likely going to a decision. We might see the scorecards here, but I could be tempted to take a submission from Francisco, or not a submission, a knockout from Francisco Prado. I think he has sneaky power in his hands. He's crispy with the striking. He's had some, like I said, he's had some tough matchups so far, but I'm not giving up on this boy yet. I think he's solid. He's a young prospect, and I think he's going to continue to improve. The experience in the UFC will help him here. Veretennikov probably going to be winging shots, looking for takedowns. And I just don't think that skill for skill, Veretennikov stacks up with Francisco Prado here. Up to this point where we're at in this card, Francisco Prado is actually my favorite pick so far based on the money line and the value. Straight money line is minus 142. So there's good value there. And of course, if you're on Veretennikov, there's good value there as well. Close money fight. I think Francisco Prado has more to offer the UFC than Veretennikov. So even in a close decision, you know how they are. They're just like boxing. We've seen it with Gabriel Bonfim and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Let's give it to the younger fighter who's going to give us more years with the promotion. And that said and done, unless Prado's getting his ass kicked out there, I don't think he's losing. Unless he really, it's like really one-sided. I don't think he's going to lose on the cards, and I do think he's live for a finish here. So I'm going to go with Francisco Prado by knockout. I think he is going to surprise some people this weekend, especially bettors who are picking against him. I picked him against Jake Matthews. Of course I'm going to pick him against fucking Nikolay Veretennikov. Next, we have a very interesting prelim here. Is this the prelim headliner? No, there's okay, the next bout is the prelim headliner, which is a banger. So we got Brendan Allen, Marvin Vettori, middleweight bout. Brendan Allen coming off a loss, both of these guys coming off a loss in their last fight. And I believe we have Brendan Allen as a minus 205 favorite and Marvin Vettori at a plus 170. The over 2.5 is minus 360. That line is looking like a women's bantamweight over right there. Minus 360 for over 2.5 rounds. Minus 205 for Brendan Allen is interesting. I do think Brendan Allen has what it takes to win this fight. But Marvin Vettori is pretty tough, man. I mean, he's hard to get to the ground. Obviously, we know he's a granite chin after seeing what Jared Cannonier did to him, and he was still standing after all those power shots. Marvin Vettori doesn't necessarily carry a lot of his own power. He did knock out Jack Hermanson back in the day with a pretty vicious shot. This one's kind of tough for me. I know that the odds are suggesting that Brendan Allen should be the winner here, but I feel like Marvin Vettori's live. I know they did get into a fight in a casino, if I'm not mistaken, and Brendan Allen, from the footage, it looked like Brendan Allen knocked him down with a punch, a straight right. But obviously, this is going to be a more fair fight. This is going to be in a cage. Brendan Allen is fighting out of Louisiana. He's a Louisiana boy. So momentum, energy, the crowd, all those factors are going to be playing in Brendan Allen's favor. But I got to say, Marvin Vettori's live here, dude. I just can't help but to think he's not. Plus 170, is it worth it? For me, this is mostly a stay away fight. I doubt Brendan Allen's getting a finish. Brendan Allen has been hurt on the feet more than Vettori has, though. And maybe Vettori comes out with some newfound cement fists. This is the tough one. I mean, I think I got to go with Brendan Allen just based on, you know, this is kind of a step down for him based on his last couple fights. He just fought Anthony Hernandez and was completely overwhelmed in the grappling. but maybe, I don't even know if it's a step down. This is a tough one to call. If anyone's watching on Twitter or YouTube, throw in a comment. Who do you got? Brendan Allen, Marvin Vettori? This is the toughest fight for me to call so far. I'm going to have to lean Brendan Allen with the home field advantage. But Marvin Vettori's live. We'll go with that. I'm going to say Brendan Allen in a close 29-28 decision. I think he can strike at range. I don't think either guy's getting finished. And if necessary, I believe Brendan Allen also has the grappling advantage. I think striking's probably relatively close in terms of who has the advantage there. But grappling upside, I'll give Brendan Allen. But this could go anyway. 29-28, leaning Brendan Allen. Yeah, it's a tough one to call for those odds. I mean, it's some of the closest odds we've seen on the entire card so far. And this fight right here is a banger. An absolute banger if Kyler Phillips shows up. If Kyler Phillips shows up and wants to... I mean, you know the pick. The pick here is Vinicius Oliveira, without a doubt. I'm going with Lock Dog. I think he's one of the toughest up-and-coming fighters in the featherweight, in the bantamweight division, I'm sorry. And... you know, his fight last time out against Said Nurmagomedov, he looked great. You know, they both got tired. They were giving it everything they had. Striking exchanges, scrambling exchanges. Vinicius Oliveira, even when he was gassed in the third round, was still there. He was still throwing with a lot of power. He was giving, you know, full efforts. There was no quit. Lock dog. You know, plain and simple, he got dog in him. All right. Vinicius Oliveira is one of my favorite up-and-comers. Kyler Phillips is also pretty solid. He has some slick striking. He's very fast. He likes to strike at range. He can grapple. I mean, we saw him in his last fight out against Rob Font. The striking was kind of going his way for a little bit. And once Rob Font started showing some resistance, Kyler Phillips was looking to spam takedowns. And it did not play out for him. He gassed himself out early and got pieced up by Rob Font. Rob Font is an experienced vet, so I don't really take too much off Kyler Phillips for that performance. But at the same time, I've never been that high on Kyler Phillips. I have some people who are. He fights with a lot of good guys over at the MMA Lab, if I'm not mistaken, in Arizona. So they have a wealth of bantamweight talent there. But Vinicius Oliveira is very, very good. I think he's very well-rounded. He carries power. He has explosive striking. You know, we saw that flying knee after gassing out Bernardo Sopaj. And we've seen him look impressive. You know, his win over Ricky Simone is very, very impressive to me. I don't care what anybody says. A dominant win over a fighter like Ricky Simone, it's very, very impressive. And then against Said Nurmagomedov last time out, you know, front choke king. So I got Vinicius Oliveira. Will he finish the fight? Hard to say. It's hard to say. I think Kyler Phillips can survive, but I do not think he can win. Kyler Phillips is a plus 130 underdog, and we got Vinicius Oliveira at minus 155. The over 2.5 is sitting at minus 230. So kind of like what I was just saying, I think that this fight is going to go to the scorecards, and I can see, I don't want to say a lopsided 30-27, but we'll say 29-28, 29-28, and 30-27 to cook the spread betters. Vinicius Oliveira by decision in this fight. I would not be surprised if he could figure out a way to finish it, especially if Kyler Phillips spams the takedowns like he did against Rob Font. I think Vinicius Oliveira is more than happy to engage in scrambles. Maybe not, but I could see a world where Vinicius Oliveira either wins by sub or finds a knockout later in the fight, rounds 2 or 3. He's a tough fighter to deal with, and I think that he has a lot to offer this bantamweight division in the future. Number 15 ranked guy. I think he's going to stay there. And is Kyler Phillips ranked? I actually should look that up. I cannot remember if my guy here is ranked. Kyler Phillips is ranked number 12. Okay. So Vinicius Oliveira is looking to move up, and Kyler Phillips is looking to hold his spot in the rankings. I'm saying after the war room we see on Monday, Tuesday, when these new rankings come out, I'm saying Vinicius Oliveira is going to be sitting in that number 12 spot. I feel pretty confident in it. I I feel like I looked at the odds yesterday and they were steeper. I think Vinicius Oliveira was a minus 170 and now he's sitting at minus 155. So it looks like money is coming in on Kyler Phillips, but I'm riding with Lock Dog. I have no reason not to. He's an absolute beast and I think he's going to go out and prove it yet again in the next matchup against Kyler Phillips at UFC 318. And now we're moving to the main card. We got Michael Johnson, Daniel Zellhuber, lightweight bout. Daniel Zellhuber is coming off a loss to Esteban Rebix. Has it been that long? Has it been that long? It must have been. He took a lot of damage in that fight, so I do like the layoff for him. And Michael Johnson, he's, basically a 50-50 fighter, 24-19, but he still does box at a high level. His chin is suspect. He's taken a lot of damage in his career. He's getting older, but he's still fast, and he still has good takedown defense. And he's in this fight. I mean, the pick is going to be Daniel Zellhuber. I think he's going to get right. He's going to get back in the win column, win his fight, and then on the mic, he's going to call for a spot on that UFC Noche. You already know it's coming, and I think they're going to give it to him. If he can win this fight in impressive fashion, it's not like he's doing anything new if he finishes Michael Johnson. But Michael Johnson is still a very skilled fighter on the feet, and he does have, wherewithal when it, goes to the ground. So I have only good things to say about Michael Johnson. I like him a lot as a fighter, but these guys are in two different career trajectories right now. And I think Daniel Zellhuber will probably get it done inside the distance. I could see it happening by knockout or submission. I'm not super confident in the method, but we got a minus 550 favorite for Daniel Zellhuber, plus 410 for Michael Johnson. And then we have yet another under 1.5. This time, the under 1.5 is sitting at plus 190. Over 1.5 is sitting at minus 250. So the fact that they lined it at 1.5 is, there's an inclination of that this fight could be finished early, but they're not banking on it. They're just not going to give that over under 2.5 at decent money. I'm going to go with Daniel Zellhuber. Cheeky sub, possible. Maybe he doesn't even want to have to deal with those quick hands of Michael Johnson, or he gets popped by something real quick and he said, you know what? Let me get this fight to the ground. Or, he rocks Michael Johnson and gets a club and sub. I have to revisit every single call that I've made so far. I have to revisit once I see the odds, see where there's value and where there isn't, what's worth playing and what's not. But I do like Daniel Zellhuber here. There's not any juice on it, but it is what it is. I'm just picking winners right now. Daniel Zellhuber should get back in the win column with this one over a win against a tough Michael Johnson. And next we got another banger, absolute banger, Dan Ige and Patricio Pitbull. Dan Ige is coming off a pretty solid win. Who in the world did Dan Ige just fight? Who in the world did Dan Ige just fight? It's imprinted in my brain, all of the recent matchups between all of these fighters, but for some reason I'm Sean Woodson. Oh my God, I've been baiting Sean Woodson forever, and he finally lost. And Dan Ige lost a close one to Lerone Murphy, and he lost a very, very close one to Diego Lopez. So in his last 5 fights, Dan Ige is 2-3. He has that very controversial fight over Bryce Mitchell, where he was the fighter who did, the most damage. I think there's a realistic way to give that decision to Dan Ige over Bryce Mitchell. Knocks out Andre Fili, steps in on 3 hours notice against Diego Lopez, wins the 3rd round, and then, Lerone Murphy's a pretty tricky guy to deal with. There's nothing I can take off him for that fight. But then we got Patricio Pitbull. He did not look like the Patricio Pitbull of old in his matchup against Yair Rodriguez. Yair is very tough, but Patricio, it kind of seemed like he was never really able to get off, Yair was striking at the range that Yair wanted to be at. Patricio Pitbull could not find his range. He was getting out scrambled. He was getting beaten up on the ground. He had there was a couple moments where he looked, all right, but all in all, it was a pretty clear and dominant victory for Yair Rodriguez. And based on his performance last time out, You know, Dan Ige seems to be in form. Patricio Pitbull is 39 years old at this point. Although I love Pitbull and I love Bellator, Bellator never dies, I have an issue or a difficult time picking Patricio Pitbull here. Let's look at the odds. Dan Ige, minus 205. Patricio Pitbull, plus 170. We got over 2.5 is at minus 280. Under 2.5 at plus 210. There's some value there. I'm not sure if Dan Ige, 50K Ige is going to nuke him, but Patricio Pitbull got hurt by Yair, and although Yair is a dynamic, rangy striker, Dan Ige does hold a lot of power in his hands. Dan Ige doesn't get finished. Yeah, I can see this fight going to a decision. Does Patricio Pitbull find some momentum here late in his career? Do we see a late career resurgence after a very tough debut loss against Yair Rodriguez? I'm going to go with no. I think Dan Ige is a lot closer to his prime. You know, although he's 2-3 in his last 5 fights, we just went over it. You know, Lerone Murphy should be fighting for a title here soon. Bryce Mitchell arguably won. Diego Lopez was on very, very, very short notice. And Patricio Pitbull just did not look like he once did in his last fight. Maybe he was octagon jitters. Maybe he had the nerves for the debut. I doubt that because he's fought at a high level for a long time. But yeah, I think I'm going to pick Dan Ige. We're going to circle back to this, though, on Thursday. If I come on here, I want to do a late night stream on Thursday and talk about all the props once the props actually do drop, because we do not have any besides the round props at this moment. But give me Dan Ige. I like Dan Ige, and most likely by decision, but I could be persuaded to take the knockout if the odds are looking crazy. And then here we got a fun one. Here we got a fun one, baby. Here, hold on. Every single time. I've had a lot of reasons to show this card. Kevin Holland, rookie card, autographed. Shout out, Josh. You already know the vibes. Kevin Holland is one of my favorite fighters of all time. He is the true definition of anyone, anywhere, anytime. We've never seen anything like it. Say what you want about Kevin Holland. If you're watching this and you're like, man, fuck Kevin Holland, he will fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. Took Khamzat Chimaev on 24 hours notice, 10 pounds up when he was originally supposed to fight Daniel Rodriguez. This fight was already booked. That whole fiasco with Nate Diaz happened. Everybody's opponents got switched up. Tony Ferguson fighting Nate, Lee fighting D-Rod, and then Kevin Holland drew the short stick, and he had to fight Khamzat Chimaev. And he actually looked pretty good. You know, he got finished quick, but he was scrambling well. His takedown defense, you know, for all things considered, he looked pretty solid. I'm not gonna lie, and I mean, you know, I'm partial to Kevin Holland. That's one of my guys. But here he's actually sitting at a very, very crazy line. Kevin Holland is sitting at a minus 500. D-Rod at plus 380. That is crazy. That is crazy. He was a minus 250 against Vicente Luque in his last fight. And we got a 2.5 line, over 2.5 plus 130, under 2.5 minus 166. The odds makers think that Kevin Holland is going to finish this fight, and I'm inclined to agree with them. And if you know me, you know I love taking Kelvin. You know I love taking Kevin Holland by submission. D-Rod has only been TKO'd once in his professional career, and that was against Ian Gary. I actually called that one as well. Ian Gary by knockout in that fight. We called that over at CST. And then Daniel Rodriguez has also been subbed. I don't know how many times he's been subbed, but the last time it happened was against Neil Magny. In a fight he was winning, he ended up getting subbed in the 3rd round. Kevin Holland has the better striking here. Daniel Rodriguez is known for his volume as well, but I think Kevin Holland has a higher finishing potential on the feet, and obviously he has the grappling advantage. So I think this fight stays where Kevin Holland wants it to. I don't think Daniel Rodriguez is going to be able to earn enough respect on the feet with his volume. I don't think he's going to be able to hurt Kevin Holland. We haven't really seen Kevin Holland hurt very much at all. Michael Olejniczak dropped him at middleweight, and Wonderboy beat him up to the body pretty good after he broke his hand in the 1st round. But damage to the head, Kevin Holland has not taken very much of it, and he has a very solid chin thus far in his career. And for being the most active fighter in the UFC, I'd say that's pretty impressive. So as a big Kevin Holland fan, I'm happy to be picking Kevin Holland in this matchup. I'm going to go with submission. I don't think he's going to just snipe out Daniel Rodriguez and finish him on the feet. And if Kevin Holland does get a knockdown, he immediately jumps on submissions. So I think Klubensov is live here. I don't think Kevin Holland is going to shoot takedowns of his own unless he gets hurt, which I do not see happening. So I think it's going to be a striking bout. Kevin Holland will probably land something flush down the middle, one of those little crazy straight rights where he jumps forward. And that'll probably put Daniel Rodriguez on his butt, and he'll snatch up the neck, probably get a Darce choke, anaconda choke, kind of little thing they got going down there. Kevin Holland has very long arms, and he's very good when it comes to submission grappling. So yeah, we're going with Kevin Holland. Unfortunately, he's a 5-1 favorite. But if we see that submission at plus 200 or plus, maybe not plus 200, plus 300 or better, that's a hammer territory. Not like a super hammer, but throw a little sprinkle on Kevin Holland by submission. And we are now at the co-main event of the evening. So for this fight, this fight's tough, man. Paulo Costa barely fights. He at one point was, a scary contender. Like, oh my God, this guy he's this massive striker with jiu-jitsu, and he's looking like an absolute killer out here. And then he ended up fighting for the title against Izzy, got smoked. We've seen him since that incline that he was moving towards the title. Since then, we've seen, I don't want to say a regression, maybe more so a reveal that he isn't as good as we once thought. Let me look at his last few fights, because he has not been very active. He lost to Strickland. He lost by split decision to Strickland, which is absolutely ridiculous. I did not have him winning a single round of that fight. That's one of the craziest scorecards I've ever seen. Robert Whittaker decision, can't knock him for that. He took Luke Rockhold at elevation. Luke Rockhold did have his moments, though. He lost to Vettori, and that was a fight in 2021 where he couldn't make weight, so they ended up fighting at light heavyweight. And before that, it was the title shot against Izzy Adesanya. So he's fought 5 times in the last 5 years. He's 1-4 in his last 5. Damn, the fall from grace of Paulo Costa. And then we have Roman Kopylov, who's an absolute dog, man. I have always loved Roman Kopylov, and he has worked on things like takedown defense, his own offensive wrestling. He's growing as a fighter. He's not the youngest guy either. He's 33 years old. But he's 4-1 in his last 5 fights, knocking out Chris Curtis, sick, wrestling and striking his way to a decision over Cesar Almeida. He did get subbed up by Anthony Hernandez, but he's a difficult puzzle to solve. And then before that, knockouts of Josh Fremd and Claudio Ribeiro. He's pretty much winning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of his last 6 wins come by knockout. For me here, the question is, how does Roman Kopylov win this fight? Is this too much of a step up for Roman Kopylov? And do we even consider Paulo Costa a step up at this point? Paulo Costa probably isn't even the best guy that Roman Kopylov fought. I think Anthony Hernandez is probably better than Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa does have a much more difficult strength of schedule with names like Strickland, Whittaker, Rockhold, Vettori, Adesanya, Romero. Those are some pretty sick names, but he's not winning these fights. That's the only thing for me. Like, yeah, you fought good fighters, but you're losing to them. Is this a step up? Yes. But does Paulo Costa have what it takes? I honestly think that Roman Kopylov has the striking advantage here. I don't know if maybe Paulo Costa can grapple. And if we see something crazy, like give me Paulo Costa by submission at plus 900, maybe. I don't think he's going to be able to knock Roman Kopylov out. I think Roman Kopylov's striking is it's vicious, and he's a very dangerous guy on the feet. He throws with malicious intentions. He's super violent. I love watching Roman Kopylov fight. If I had to guess, this is going to be primarily a stand-up fight, similar to what we saw with Robert Whittaker. They just engaged, and they got it on the feet, but I'm going to go with Roman Kopylov. I haven't seen the odds for this fight. I'm very excited to see who the underdog is. Holy shit, man. Roman Kopylov, minus 230. Paulo Costa coming in at plus 190, over 2.5 rounds, minus 230, under 2.5 rounds, plus 175. Okay, so Paulo Costa is a 2-1 dog. That is crazy to me, bro. 2-1 underdog. So he's a plus, what is he? Plus 190. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That kind of makes me want to pick Paulo Costa. He's clearly fought the better competition. You know, me and Nick always say, like, people will be like, oh, look at his losses. He has good losses. I mean, what's a good loss? Like, yeah, you fought a good guy and he beat you because he was good. Damn, yo, minus 230 for Roman Kopylov in this fight. I was thinking more like maybe minus 150 or even a slight underdog, but Paulo Costa has 5 fights in 5 years. Roman Kopylov is relatively active at least. And he looks like a killer when it's on the feet, man. Like, I don't think Paulo Costa, although he does wing big shots, he's not really putting guys down like we would think that he would. Fuck it. Fuck it. I'm going to go with Roman Kopylov. I really do. For the record, if you're hearing this and me picking Roman Kopylov, I like Roman Kopylov. I like the activity. I like that he's been winning fights. He's been getting knockouts. But at a minus 230 is not necessarily my favorite tag. I would prefer it from a betting standpoint to be a little bit closer to even odds, especially because of the name that he's fighting and the names that Paulo Costa has been in the cage with. Although he's lost those fights, that experience does count for something. And I think this fight is a little bit closer than what the odds are suggesting. Minus 230 for Roman Kopylov. I think that when we watch the fight, there's a large chance that it ends up looking like a lot closer than that. Unless I'm wrong and Kopylov goes out there and smokes him. But I think Paulo Costa, in his own respect, is live to win a decision. I mean, he lost all 5 rounds to Sean Strickland, and one judge gave him the fight. So we never know. If Paulo Costa's in there, who knows what the fuck's going to happen? Maybe that same ref or that same judge is in this panel. And so there's one. Now he just needs one of the other judges to figure out, okay, let's just give it to Paulo for whatever the fuck reason. You never know. This is a very interesting one. I'm excited to see how this fight plays out, but I'm going to pick Roman Kopylov. We'll circle back on Thursday, and if the odds get a little closer, I have a feeling the odds are going to get closer. We have Kopylov at minus 230. I could see some late money coming in on Paulo Costa, and that could make it more valuable on the side of Roman Kopylov. But, you know, let's see Paulo Costa by submission just for whatever the fuck. There's an inclination there. If he can get Kopylov to the ground, he's been suspect before with his takedown defense, although it has been improved. I could see Paulo Costa potentially taking advantage of that based on his strength and size. So we're going to go Kopylov very tentatively for now, and I want to see the props on Kopylov by knockout. Significant strike totals for Roman Kopylov could be a play here as well. Yeah, Kopylov is the pick right now. But we're going to come back on Thursday and look at all the props, break down all the props, see what we like from there as well, because the last 3 cards, we've been hitting every prop. Every single prop we throw down has been hitting. So that's why I want to start doing Thursday breakdowns with more odds available, because if anybody's watching and you hear some shit that we are bringing, and if you have been listening the last few weeks, you probably made a lot of money because we have been on fire. And now we got the main event of the evening. Also, if you're in here, throw a like, throw a sub. Bottom of the screen, follow Combat Sports Today on all social media platforms at CS Today News. You will not regret it if you like all things combat sports. We got it all. Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier. You know, this is a trilogy. No surprise. Dustin Poirier has won both of the fights, one by submission and the second by decision. The second fight was at lightweight, but that was a not fully transition to lightweight Max Holloway, He was clearly a little bit smaller in there at the time. You know, when we had seen Max Holloway more recently fighting against Justin Gaethje, he looked a lot more fit into the frame of a lightweight versus when he fought Dustin Poirier last time. He kind of just looked like he put on a couple pounds. It wasn't a fully dedicated switch. So I do like that. Max Holloway has been out for some time now. When did he fight? When did Max Holloway fight Ilya? Was that in February? Am I tripping? He's had a little bit of time now. It was last October. Okay. So he's had almost a year off. I don't know who's closer to their prime. Max Holloway pretty much looks like he's in his prime. Obviously, the fight with Ilya went the way it did, but Ilya's on an absolute destructive warpath right now. Dustin Poirier is 36, lost by submission in the 5th round to Islam. Big underdog victory against Benoit Saint-Denis. We called that shit. Round 2 knockout of BSD. We actually called that down to the round. Justin Gaethje got knocked out, submitted Michael Chandler, and then submitted by Charles Oliveira. So he's 2-3 in his last 5. Dustin Poirier. And Max Holloway is 3-2 in his last 5, only losing to Alexander Volkanovski and Ilia Topuria. This is a pretty tough one to call because, you know, Dustin Poirier, he is 36. He has lost 3 of his last 5 fights, but he still looks primed. When he was fighting Islam Makhachev, his takedown defense, his submission defense, his offensive striking, his striking defense. Obviously, Islam was having moments of success as well in the striking because of the threat of the takedown, and he does have some tricky knees up the middle, and he carries some power of his own. But Dustin Poirier, even in his losses, has looked good. Like, he kind of got fucked up on the ground by Charles Oliveira. Obviously, the fight with Gaethje was just all-out war. I thought that the tide was turning his way, and boom, he got hit by that vicious head kick. Max Holloway, first time he's ever gotten finished in his last fight, but he put on a masterclass against Gaethje. That was absolutely crazy to watch. I do like the time off for Max Holloway. Dustin Poirier fighting in Louisiana, retirement fight. Is Lil Wayne gonna walk him out? Maybe. That would be fucking sick. Oh, let me look at the odds. I don't know, because this fight, like, it's a toss-up, dude. Like, okay, Max Holloway is closer to his prime, probably. He has never been knocked out. It finally just happened. He's taken a lot of damage over his career. Does that knockout finally weaken the chin? Does all that damage that's been accumulating over the years finally start to have a larger effect on him after that first actual crack? Maybe. Dustin Poirier does have very slick boxing, but Max Holloway, in his own respect, also incredible boxer. Max Holloway is a -142 favorite. Dustin Poirier sits on a +120 underdog. The over 1.5, that would be crazy. We have an over 4.5 at -160, under 4.5 sitting at +124. The spreads are off for this, but I am a big advocate of do not bet spreads. Don't ever bet spreads unless you are picking a fighter to get a finish. Because when in my history, my brief history of betting spreads, they just cook it. The judges cook it every time. Like, I'll get a juicy spread +3.5 on this fighter. Oh my God, he easily won the 3rd round. 29-28, 29-28, and 30-27. Just like that, your spread's cooked. So I would stay away from spreads regardless. There's a lot of value if you're confident in Max Holloway at -140, and if you're confident in Dustin Poirier at +120. Either way, this is a very valuable money line fight to bet on. This is a tough one to pick. This one's a tough one to pick for me. I think I'm going to have to rock with it. I mean, I've been watching Dustin Poirier. Well, I've been watching both of them since I was pretty young, to be fair. So I'm a big fan of both of these guys, but Max Holloway has no plans on retiring. And personally, I kind of would like Dustin Poirier to go out on a high note, retire, winning 3 fights against Max Holloway, a very, very high level, pretty primed and ready to go fighter in Max Holloway. Do it in Louisiana for your last fight. keep the losses in the single digit category. I do love the thought of that, but at the same time, I feel like Max Holloway has more to lose here. Dustin Poirier is retiring, win or lose. And Max Holloway is looking to establish a name for himself at the lightweight division. He already kind of did that with his knockout over Justin Gaethje, but then he goes back down to featherweight and gets knocked out for the first time in his career. So coming up and losing to Dustin Poirier here would not be very beneficial for his title aspirations at lightweight. So at the same time, okay, I want Dustin Poirier to end on a high note, but I also want Max's trajectory at lightweight to continue on the up and up. So from a fan standpoint, I'm going to be sad as fuck regardless, because obviously I love both of these fighters. I want Max Holloway to continue moving up in the division, and I want Dustin Poirier to retire on a high note. So I'm going to be heartbroken regardless. If I'm going from a pick, I got to go with vibes because I think this is a very close fight regardless. I don't think Max Holloway is going to do Dustin Poirier like he did Justin Gaethje. That's just simply not going to happen. Justin Gaethje is more of a brawler, although he did knock out Poirier in his last fight. Dustin Poirier is a bit more calculated, a bit more technical, and he has really solid boxing. I can see this being a 5-round slugfest. I don't even know who to pick here, man. This is a tough one, both as a fan and as a bettor. I want to lean Dustin Poirier because I do like that plus 120 underdog status for the legend fighting in his hometown. You know, there's intangibles. The same with Brendan Allen. There's intangibles that come along with that. You know, feeling like you're at home, being very close to the venue, you know, all your friends and family are there. Like that gives you a little something extra. And that doesn't always mean anything, but I really think that that can play an advantage in terms of like the energy that the fighter brings to the cage. This one's going to be really fun. I'm just rooting for a good fight. These are two of my favorite fighters of all time. I'm going to lean Dustin Poirier for now at plus 120, but this fight truly, truly could go either way. I don't think anyone's getting finished, but I'm hoping for a war. I'm hoping just as Dustin always wants, you know, he wants a war. And I'm sure he's going to come out with that war hat. This is the third fight between them. They are very familiar with each other's styles. I believe Max Holloway will come in more fit to the frame of lightweight, which will play to his advantage as well. But I'm going to lean Dustin Poirier for now. Like I said, Thursday night, we're going over props and best bets for the card. We've been absolutely on fire. That's why I want to come back and start doing Thursday streams as well, because the props have been hitting 3 weeks. The last 3 cards, we've been almost sweeping the card on picks and on props. We're picking winners and we're picking methods, and we're doing it at a very high rate, at least for the last 3 weeks. It's very difficult to continue on that path. Just, you know, statistically, the chances are there's going to be a drop off, but we're looking to keep it going, even with a lot of massive favorites, a lot of under 1.5s. This is going to be a tough one from a betting standpoint, but it should be a very entertaining card, top to bottom. We have some severe mismatches that will hopefully result in some pretty exciting finishes, and maybe we'll have some pretty exciting upsets as well. I'm very excited for this card. I'm going to be posted up with my homies and my mama. We're watching Dustin Poirier. That's one of my mom's favorite fighters. So, and Max Holloway too. She likes them both. So it's going to be fun. I'm super excited. Those are all my picks, my initial breakdowns, leans. I'm super excited talking about it. As you guys know, I have been talking for a fucking hour and I have not stopped. I love this shit. I love the UFC. I love combat sports. I love CST. If you're still here, like, subscribe, follow on all social media platforms. You see it on the bottom of the screen. Follow Combat Sports Today on all platforms at CS Today News, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Share with your friends. If you got some hardcore fight fans who don't know about us yet, put them on. You won't regret it. Shout out Big Phil. Thursday night, I'm coming back. We're breaking down props. You don't want to miss it. You already know how we're coming. Always do your own research. Bet responsibly. And most importantly, enjoy the card. Let's get after it. I'll see you guys soon.